Now, Roger Meadows and I had a discussion, and we decided it would be best if I went through each state. Not going to do each state tonight, but each night I'm going to present a different state that did have ballot initiatives, whether they passed or whether they failed. Sometimes when it fails, it's actually a good thing, depending on what the question is. But I'm going to go through these ballot initiatives and tell you what passed so you can see what some of these other states are passing, and you can see the percentage. How much is it passing by? I think that's important as well. So you can see if people are kind of on the fence with some of these issues or if it's just a landslide win, right? So we're actually going to get started off with Arizona tonight. And Arizona is an interesting state. Some people call it a red state. Some people call it a purple state. But I know it as a ballot initiative state. Now, Arizona had some interesting questions on the ballot. They had a lot of them. Because they had a lot of them, we are going to do half tonight and half on Thursday. Otherwise, we'd be here for a long time, and you would not be happy with me. Now, when I say Arizona is an interesting state, you have to understand how initiatives work in Arizona. Roger Meadows was so nice and so generous to put this together for me. Make this a little bit bigger. Now, Arizona. When I say this is an interesting state, in Arizona, ballot initiatives work like this. Citizens of Arizona may initiate a legislation and amendments through the process of direct initiative, meaning successful petitions bypass the Arizona legislature and go directly on the ballot for voters to vote on. This state is a little bit easier because they can bypass that legislative process. It's a little bit easier here than it may be in some of the other states. Probably explains why they had so many ballot initiatives. Citizens of Arizona may initiate legislation as either a state statute to pass Arizona laws or a constitutional amendment to add to the Arizona Constitution. Citizens also have the power to repeal legislation via veto referendum. The Arizona state legislature, like the other 49 states, may place their own measures on the ballot as legislatively referred constitutional amendments, but also, unlike most states, place legislatively referred state statutes on the ballot to allow voters to participate in approving their laws the legislature wishes to pass as well. So let's go ahead and get into some of these initiatives that they had in Arizona. So the first one failed. This initiative did not pass, and we're going to go into it. I wish I could make this big. Oh, I can make it bigger. Kind of. Yeah, I can. And then I just scoot it over just a tad. Okay, that's better for you guys. This one failed. No votes, 63.33%. Legislative changes to ballot initiatives with invalid provisions amendment. Let's get straight to it. The initiative amendment was put forth by the legislature, not the voters, but for the voters to ratify where a yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to allow the Arizona state legislature to amend or repeal voter-approved ballot initiatives if any portion has been declared unconstitutional or illegal by the Arizona Supreme Court or the U.S. Supreme Court. This again failed. This did not pass. No votes, as you can see. And it says here the measure was defeated. So this is just another example. This is an initiative that was brought forth by the legislature, not by the voters, and it did not pass. So as of 2021, the state legislature could not amend or repeal voter-approved ballot initiatives due to Proposition 105 that goes back to 1998, also known as the Voter Protection Act, with an exception for changes that further the measure's purpose and receive a 3/4 vote in each legislative chamber. Before Proposition 105, the Arizona state legislature could amend or repeal voter-approved ballot initiatives and referendums. If this were approved by voters, that would have allowed the state to come in to reverse that using the court system as their loophole. So this is actually a good thing that this did not pass. You don't want them to be able to come in and reverse reverse things. Another ballot initiative that they had, and I really like this one, this passed by 55.23%. So I want you to pay attention to some of these percentages here. That passed, but not by much, right? So there were people that had some concerns about this. I wish I could move this thing down here, but it doesn't move away. This is Arizona Proposition 129, single subject requirement for ballot initiatives amendment. Let me tell you what this one is about. So here it says the measure was approved. The initiative amendment was put forth by the legislature, not by the voters, but the voters needed to ratify, where a yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to require that citizen-initiated ballot measures embrace a single subject. Let me sum this up for you, because this gets into a lot of legal jargon, and I'm just going to make it very simple for you. Basically, this ballot initiative was basically asking people, do you want people to be able to bring forth a ballot initiative that has multiple subject areas? And they voted to not have that happen, to make it just a single subject. What do I mean by that? Let's say there's a law in Arizona that you don't like, but let's say a part of that law, there's many different parts to that law, many different pieces that you may want to remove. Instead of putting that forth as one ballot initiative and saying all of these parts of this law we want removed, you cannot do that. You can only put forth a ballot initiative that has a single subject, one. So if you want to bring forth all of those parts of that law that you want to change, each one would have to be a separate ballot initiative. Now, what's the pro about that? The pro is voters are not confused. Sometimes when you give voters too much information, too many subjects, people go in, they get confused. There may be one part of the ballot initiative that they approve of, but let's say the other two parts they don't approve of. Now they don't know how to vote. Do I vote for it or do I vote against it? Now, what is the con? The con is the fact that the people who are trying to bring forth the ballot initiative, that creates more work for them, because now they have to actually bring forth multiple ballot initiatives, one initiative for each subject. But I really think that's the way it should be. I think it's a lot easier for the voters if you just bring forth one subject on a ballot initiative. Again, you want to make this as simple as possible. I've seen these go terribly wrong because people were confused about the question. Let's look at another ballot initiative that Arizona had as well. This one also passed. I really like this one. This is Arizona Proposition 130, Property Tax Exemptions Amendment. This passed by 63.76%. That's pretty good. Okay. This ballot initiative says a yes vote supported allowing the legislature to set certain property tax exemption amounts and qualifications, and consolidating the Constitution's property tax exemption provisions into a single article. Now, this includes property tax exemptions for widows, widowers, those with total or permanent disabilities, disabled vets, and property used for trade, business, and agriculture. I am happy that this passed, and I don't even live in Arizona. I don't even live there. I'm happy that this passed, because if you are married and your spouse passes away, you have a house. Guess what? You still have to pay the property taxes on that house. But now you went from maybe 2 income to 1 income household. How are you going to afford to pay all the property taxes on that home now that it's just you and it's not you and your spouse anymore? Let's look at another situation. You are a homeowner. You are working. You have an accident. You become disabled. You can no longer work and have 100% disability, but you still got to pay the property taxes on that house. How are you going to afford that when disability checks are low anyway, right? It's going to be less than what you were making when you were an employee. So this is going to put in exemptions for people like that. people who get in those situations and they're like, I can't afford to pay the property taxes on my house anymore. This is especially important to those who have paid their mortgage off. Their house is completely paid off, but they still have to pay the property taxes. So something like this can come in and really help people. So shout out to Arizona for passing that. Sean said, yo, this is amazing. I agree. This is awesome. This is awesome. All right, let's go to another one. This one also passed. Arizona Proposition 131, create office of the Lieutenant Governor Amendment. This one passed by 55.16%. This is another one that is particularly close. A yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to create the position of Lieutenant Governor, who would be elected on a joint ticket with the governor and would succeed the governor in case of vacancy. You know what this means, right? This means you really need to like the person that you vote for lieutenant governor. I'm just saying, because if something happened to the governor, the lieutenant governor would now take their place. So if you're in Arizona, pay attention to that. This did pass. Again, this passed by 55.16%. So people would seem to be a little torn on this one and kind of like, I don't know. But previously, the Secretary of State would be the one who would succeed the governor's office if something happened. So now that will go to the lieutenant governor instead. This one was very close. This ballot initiative, Arizona Proposition 132, 60% vote requirement for ballot measures to approve taxes amendment. This passed, but only by 50.72%. So people were not too sure about this one. A yes vote supported this constitutional amendment to require a 60% vote for voters to pass ballot measures to approve taxes. Let me make this simple for you. Long story short, if there is a ballot measure that involves taxes, in order for that initiative to pass, it would need to get at least 60%, not 50.01%. So they're requiring more support for any changes when it comes to taxes. So I think that's why that one had a slim pass of 50.72%, because some people were probably like, 60%, really? We need that much? And some people were probably like, hell yeah, we need that much. That's my taxes, man. All right. So that's another one. And then we're going to do one more. And like I said, they have a lot, so I'm splitting this up into 2 nights. For you college buds, this one is for you. This one also passed. Arizona Proposition 308, in-state tuition for non-citizen residents measure. Oh, snap. A yes vote supported allowing non-citizen students, except those considered to be non-resident aliens, under federal law to receive in-state college tuition when a student attended a school in Arizona for at least 2 years and graduated from a public school, private school, or homeschool in Arizona. Let me tell you what this means. As someone whose parents were in the military, I didn't qualify for in-state tuition. Because technically, I was not considered a resident of North Carolina, even though I graduated from high school in North Carolina. When it was time for me to apply for colleges, in order for me to get in-state tuition, I had to fill out a form called a military fee waiver. And this was for all of us that had military parents, because technically we were not considered a resident of that state because we moved so much. And that form made it possible for us to be able to get in-state tuition. So Arizona passing this is huge. Allowing non-citizen students, except those considered to be non-resident. So this includes students who may be immigrants here, but let's say they're not a citizen. So they're in the US. By the way, that doesn't mean they're legal. I want to clear that up. Okay. They're in the US, but they're not actually a citizen yet. There are a lot of people in that situation. They're non-documented, or they've applied for the paperwork, but they don't have it yet. Like, they're in the process, all that kind of jazz. It takes years, it takes a long time. But this allows them to get in-state college tuition if they graduated from a public school, private school, or a home school in Arizona. That's huge. This passed by 51.24%. Now, that one was also really close. And I think the reason why that was close is because some people may feel like they may not think it's fair for them to get in-state tuition there. But there we go. There we go. And I'll get to some of those other ones Thursday. But those are some of the ballot initiatives so far that went through in Arizona for 2022. We're going to do each state, different state, each night, so you can see what's passing in some of these other states. Steve says, Sabby, some of our ballot initiatives here are rigged. Yes means no, and no means yes. The way they word them to confuse people. Yeah, that's another problem. That's what I was saying. We ran into that same problem in 2020 when we were voting on ranked choice voting. Like, people were confused. Most people I talked to voted no because there's like, I don't even understand the question, or they didn't vote for it at all. Sometimes that's on purpose, by the way. Sometimes that's done on purpose. So, yeah. Stephanie says, great idea to cover ballot initiative, Sabby. Thank you so much. That's right, guys. If you're in a BI state, tune in here every night. I'm live. We're going through each state one by one. I didn't feel like I really gave you guys enough information when we talked about them right before the midterm. So Roger was like, we need to go through every state. So yeah. Robert said Sabby was the kid that begged for more homework. LOL. I was such a nerd. Hey, Robert. I was the only kid until I was 13. So I did love homework. I loved school. Let's go ahead with that comment on Rockfin. All right. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Notice the single subject initiated by the government applies to CBIs, but didn't apply it to the legislature. Time for a CBI to make Arizona government adhere to the same standard. The tax proposal of 60% can bow fuel the push for an Arizona public bank. That would be another good one too. I think every state needs to have a public bank. You know, someone reached out to me too from North Dakota recently, and they said, yep, this is how we've been able to pass things in the state. Public banks. Last night, I did half of Arizona's ballot initiatives. I'm going to do the other 3 tonight. There's 3 left. So here we go. So back to Arizona ballot initiatives. Arizona Proposition 309, voter identification requirements for mail-in ballots and in-person voting measure. And here, a yes vote supported making multiple changes to Arizona's voter identification and mail-in ballot policies, including requiring dates of birth and voter identification numbers for mail-in ballots, and eliminating the existing 2-document alternative to photo ID for in-person voting. So this measure here failed. It says no votes, 50.38%. So that measure was defeated. The other measure that they had was Arizona Proposition 310, sales tax for fire district funding measure. A yes vote supported creating a 0.1% sales tax for 20 years to provide funding for a state's fire district. This one also failed. No votes, 51.80%. So let's go down here. We have another one. This one passed. Arizona Proposition 209, healthcare debt interest rate limit and debt collection exemptions initiative. If you have any type of medical debt, this one is for you. This bud is for you. All right. A yes vote supported setting a limit on interest rates for debt accrued from receiving healthcare services equal to either the weekly average 1-year constant maturity treasury yield of 3% and increasing the amount of value for certain property and earnings exempt from attachment, execution, forced sale, and any other debt collection processes. Not only did this passed with flying colors. 72.01% voted in favor of that. And I believe I have one more. This one also passed. Arizona Proposition 211, Campaign Finances Sources Disclosure Initiative. A yes vote supported requiring that persons or entities that make up an independent expenditure of $50,000 or more on a statewide campaign or $25,000 or more on a local campaign must disclose the names of the money's original sources, defined as the person or businesses that earned the money being spent. That's a good one. That passed 72.34%. So they have to disclose those names, the original source. That one's pretty huge, actually. I like that.